Welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast, where your host, Josh Sweeney, will give you, the business leaders, HR professionals, and company culture aficionados, the knowledge you need to take your company culture to the next level.
Hello, and welcome to the Epic Company Culture Podcast. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Prototype Prime for this amazing podcast space. Today's episode is all about employee engagement, and we are joined here by Emily McInnes from Mahalo HR. Emily, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and Mahalo.
Sure thing. After more than almost 15 years of building great teams and seeing companies scale, I decided I wanted to kind of go off on my own and really create a business to help companies retain and nurture their talent because it's so important.
Yeah, it's definitely important to, retain that talent and nurture it. Retention's a big concept, a big thing going around right now with just all the challenges we have in the talent market, right? There's a huge competition for talent. There's a huge shortage for talent. And I love the way that you guys are helping with that, with the employee engagement and employee recognition. So could you start off by telling us just a little bit about what the employee engagement and recognition space looks like? How do people solve these problems in general?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, like you said, turnover or retaining people is a top issue. HR professionals cite employee turnover as the number one challenge that they're looking to address. And what Mahalo does is make it really easy to thank and reward great work when it happens, because it's a fundamental need of people to feel appreciated. And so I think in this space, we see a lot of companies trying to make it easier to make that recognition happen. But what Mahalo does that's really special is we integrate into the tools that businesses are already using so that there isn't another tool to manage or onboard. So we virtually eliminate any hurdle to adoption. We just want to make it really easy to just say thanks and then continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's one of the things I loved about talking to you and getting the demo of the software was it's not another application, yet another application that forces me to log into their platform and do things their way and consolidates all my information and forces me into this model. It's built into Slack, it's built into Gmail, it's built into other systems that I use on a daily basis, and it's just integrated into the workflow. I don't have to go anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, and we think that's definitely key, and we hear from our clients that that's key. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like that's a huge thing that people could get on board with in the software space is like going to the user instead of making them log into yet another application. Other than Gmail and Slack, are you integrated with any other tools right now?
We're also actually integrated with Jira, which has been great. Yep. And like you said, people are trying to create that kind of culture of recognition. And there are a few things that we've realized through research and our clients that really matter about programs. So I'd love to share them with you.
Yeah, definitely.
As companies are looking to create a recognition program, whether with us or whatever, it's important that recognition be really timely. So sometimes organizations will say, oh, I'm going to do, a quarterly award or an annual reward or something like that. But what we found is that it's really important that you're saying, that's a great job for doing, that presentation just now. So really in the moment, and also encouraging recognition to be amongst colleagues. So not necessarily top down, but also peer-to-peer really matters. That it's public, so we don't want it to just be in a hidden little note that we give to somebody. We want to make sure that everyone knows that Emily is saying thank you to Josh for this. We also want to make sure that it can happen really easily, but also frequently. So the more that we can say thank you, the better. And then a big one that's very much on the scene right now is tying it to company values and goals. So that's very key. We just want to bring it full circle, right? And it helps organizations really drive home what's most important to them by recognizing the work that's in line with those goals.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I know I've been at companies myself where you were recognized for a certain value, right? They had a certain value and you exhibited that value, but it was only in the quarterly meeting. so it wasn't
Right.
called out in a very timely manner. And then because it's in a quarterly meeting, they feel like they have to call everybody out. Like everybody kind of gets a trophy and we go around and talk about all the good things each person did. And, then you got logistics around, well, what if we don't have one for the person over there, one person on the team, they feel left out. There's all kinds of challenges with just doing it quarterly, whereas this is on the spot and it's from anybody
Right.
on the team.
It's kind of like, I make it akin to like saying happy birthday after the fact. It's like when you tell somebody happy birthday a week later, like, oh, it's nice, but it's kind of like the moment's passed,
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Like, it was good. I wish you would have been at the party too, but
Yeah.
you missed it.
Exactly.
Awesome. So what are some other trends that are happening or that you're seeing in like the engagement and recognition space outside of software? What are some other things that are just catching hold?
I think it's all about just a bigger focus on company culture and making people want to go to work. And it's not about trends of the past where it's like, having air hockey tables or ping pong tables or other distractions that help people not work. But it's actually making people enjoy the work that they're doing more in the moment.
Well, I know, like, I love playing with it and using it because I'm terrible at recognition. I mean, that's just the reality. I'm not good at like recognizing it right there and putting that kind word in. It's more of a skill that I have to remember and hone over time. But like with software that helps you with recognition, you get reminders, which is really cool. It's like, hey, you haven't sent any kind words in over a month, by the way. Or, it's halfway through the month and you've said nothing to anybody,
Start
right?
being nice.
Yeah, start being nicer, and it's just one of those things. Like I find, we do a lot of personality analytics and know that there's just people that are really good at it naturally. And there's other people that it's not that they don't want to say something nice. It's just that they don't think about it as often or, they didn't grow up doing it. There's all kinds of scenarios why that happens. But having technology that comes in and helps you with the culture and reminds you every 15 days that like, hey, here's an easy way to do this. You haven't sent anything. It makes you want to make sure that happens.
Yep. And it does become second nature. So after you get reminded a few times, you remember to do it, and then it's just it becomes automatic, right? And it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been told to smile more and you'll just become happier. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I had to practice smiling just for this podcast, actually.
Are you happier?
I'm much happier. I'm happier when I'm here. So, yeah, I think the first one, I delivered my first video when we first started doing videos and everything. And Christian with MTech, who helps us with that, was like, hey, Josh, let me play this back to you. Let me show you what this looks like. I'm like, wow, that's pretty horrible. You're not smiling. So, yeah,
nice.
It's practice. Just like recognition. So
absolutely.
Employee recognition, engagement, what are some things that Mahalo helps with? So I'm able to not only recognize them and call it out, like right in Slack, everybody can see it, but then what happens?
What happens within the organization is you have just a better company culture. I think people feel more connected to one another and then also have a better understanding of how their work contributes to the overall company goals. So I think, that happens. Which is
well,
great.
I was leading into like Mahalos. Mahalos happen. So like I send the recognition, and what else is part of that recognition?
Oh, absolutely. So you send a thank you to a colleague, either through whatever platform you're using, and then they'll get notified, and everybody else in the organization will see it as well. And then they accumulate Mahalos or whatever points you decide to, whatever currency you decide to use. But they accumulate those points over the course of time, and then they can use them to actually buy things in the company store. And what's great about Mahalo is we're super flexible. So you can really create a reward store that will resonate with your employees, with the people in your organization. So if, VIP parking is going to get them excited, give them VIP parking. If a gift card will get them excited, do that. We also, unique to Mahalo, is the ability to offer raffles, which our clients really love. Because it's a way to let your kind of reward stored dollar go even further, and it kind of stirs up excitement twice, right? Once when the person's able to buy a raffle ticket, and then also when the raffle drawing happens and winners are announced. And that's a great way to do really big ticket items. Maybe it's a round trip vacation for two to Hawaii or something like that. And you don't want to do those every day. That would get expensive, but you could offer those, annually or quarterly in line with the big event. So, yep, people use the points that they accrue to buy things in the store, and then they feel great again once they get that reward.
Yeah, I love the idea around the raffle system, because when we were looking at, the different software that's out there, some of it's very corporate software. Like, you feel like you have to have a $100,000 budget to launch this incentive management and recognition platform, and then you have to have a big budget to load it with all of the gift cards and everything that you can buy from the store, and it looks a little bit daunting.
Right.
But one of the features Mahalo has, the raffle system, I didn't see as far as I know, I didn't see it in any other system where, I can have this one gift card and people can put in points and kind of raffle it off, and, they all go in, and that's really economical for everybody. It's economical
Absolutely.
for the company, and it's a chance to win. Like you said, get excited about the raffle, you pull it out, you can name somebody. There's different ways to give it away to really promote the raffle that's happening.
Absolutely. It's not about how much money you spend. I mean, you can have a really effective recognition program and spend effectively nothing. You could have all of your rewards be cultural perks. Maybe you get to name a conference room or have that VIP parking spot right in front of the building, or, things along those lines. It's really about what is going to resonate with your employees, and that's not necessarily money. We actually saw that recognition has a greater effect on kind of employee engagement than a salary boost alone. So it really is a great return on investment.
Yeah, I know when we're doing, I do a presentation called Demystifying Human Behavior. And in part of it, we talk about work motivation, what motivates people. And we have these 20 ways that have been discovered by behavior psychologists. And all of them, all 19 out of 20 are other than currency, other than money. And we talk about, you got to change the currency from thinking you need to give somebody money to something that really resonates with them. And this is a way to do it, because I can look at those and I can actually align those 20 ways that we change the currency from money to their motivators and build it into Mahalo so that I'm meeting them where they need to be met.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what else would you like to share about Mahalo, excuse me.
Tongue twister. I mean, it's a great way to easily make sure that you're giving recognition where it's due. There's a 60-day free trial. It integrates automatically with the tools that you're using, so there's really no reason not to try it, to just see how good it feels to say thank you.
Yeah, and I found that it looked like most of the software solutions out there for this, including Mahalo, were very cost effective. Again, it wasn't this big $100,000 thing. It was their per user licenses, they're built into the tool, and the per user amount is very cost effective. Absolutely.
Yep. And then in terms of a reward store budget, I mean, you don't even need anything more than, say, $5 a person per month to really get things going. So it's definitely within reach of any organization. And it's great to build it into your company culture at the onset. So a lot of companies are ahead of the game, but some, come to us later in life, and it's harder to retrofit, right? But when you really ingrain appreciation in at the beginning, it just it makes scaling out a lot easier.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier recognition based on values.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that people recognize? What are some ways that people exhibit values, and what are the ways that they're recognized? How does that normally work? I know in my experience, as I mentioned, I exhibited some value that the company had with a client. The company found out through an email or whatever it might have been, and then I was recognized for that. What are some other ways that you see that come into play?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of organizations say that they have these kind of core tenets that they like to live by, and they want all employees to follow accordingly, but there isn't any way to really keep tabs on how that's going. I mean, some companies have, as part of their annual review process, how well does this person, play on teams for collaboration. Maybe that's a core tenet, or drive results or something like that. But it's really hard after the fact at the end of the year to look back over the last 12 months and say, oh, well, I remember back in September, they were doing this. And it just makes everything a lot more top of mind, both to think about how people are performing, but also for the person in the moment to say, hey, I saw Josh was just recognized for being a great team player. I should keep that more top of mind because I know that's really important to the organization. So it kind of keeps things, yes, very top of mind, I think is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it before, but I think that's a really good opportunity to say, like at the end of the year, the Christmas party, the holiday party, whatever it might be, you can go pull that report. You can say, who did all the recognizing? Like who was our number one person at recognizing others, right? Because that's a good skill and trait to have. And then who was the most recognized? What were some unique recognition points? So I like the idea of being able to go back to that at the end of the year, because without software to do it, you're right. I have to think back to what we did in January, who we recognized, who did something really good. And, that's just not going to happen. I can't remember what I had on Monday for lunch. Like, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, I think that's a really good way to, get that roll up and, have the drawing at the end of the year, have the awards, whatever it might be for that year-end party.
Absolutely. You can really have fun with it. We also have built into the system a leaderboard that a lot of clients will put on a big screen in a prominent location. So you can even keep tabs on what's going on and who's being very active at any given point. So that's also a good kind of visual way.
Yeah, and it seems like you could cross that leaderboard with also, who hasn't done any recognition or recognized others, right? Who hasn't been recognized? What's falling down there? Why is that happening? So, I think that leads into other company culture type initiatives where you can really identify a struggle of, hey, we have a culture of people that don't recognize each other, or maybe you do, and it's just they're not used to using software yet. I think there's lots of ways that you can analyze that information and make some positive changes.
Absolutely. We have a very rich data set that clients have been using, not only, like you said, to recognize those who are performing well, but also to identify those that are maybe falling through the cracks a little bit. We don't put them on the leaderboard page for public shaming, but that data set is available for administrators to address any problems before they become big issues.
Awesome. So let's go back a little bit before Mahalo. What was one of the best culture experiences you had in your career?
That's a tough one. Well, I have to think back. I don't have the data set. Let's see. I think, I was lucky in that early in my career, I was with a company that was very focused on creating a positive culture. And I was with them before they scaled to be a really large organization. So I was with them for that whole ride. And I saw that they kind of had those core values at the beginning and really nurtured them and kept them top of mind. And one of the coolest perks of working there was actually after every 5 years of being there, they wanted you to take a break and really set the reset button and, follow a passion outside of work and then come back recharged. They called it the Vista break. So it was actually a month-long sabbatical that you had to take as one big chunk. And I know they have that all over Europe, but I haven't heard of many companies in the U.S. doing that. And I know that that's not possible for many companies in the U.S., but, they pushed it and people looked forward to it. And I think it really solidified the fact that they were focused on their people. They wanted to make sure their people were refreshed and ready to go.
That's an awesome perk. I feel like I talked to one entrepreneur who does something with sabbatical, maybe one or two actually, that does something with sabbaticals after a certain period of time, and they even pay for some of it maybe. But it's not something I've heard very commonly. Yes.
Well, that's my fondest memory.
Yeah. So you don't have to name any names, but worst memory, let's not do worst memory. Let's do what really got you to want to build Mahalo. Like, was there a pivotal moment where you're like at a company that just was terrible at recognition? You're like, I can solve this problem. Or, what was the genesis of it?
Sure. So I was fortunate enough to work for many great organizations and consult for some great organizations. And then I also was fortunate enough to see some organizations that were really struggling. And it wasn't because they had a bad idea or a bad business model or anything like that. It was really just that people were struggling to come together and work effectively. Like the culture was lacking. So I think from there, I wanted to make a difference so that you could have a great idea and an easier way to create the culture to go with it. Hence Mahalo was born. And then one of my favorite things to do is come up with company names.
Okay.
And Mahalo was available. So we liked the vibe of it, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Because I know I've come up with the
brand of just being easy and fun and a vacation.
How do you bridge that gap of like easy, fun vacation to serious leader that needs to write a check for employee recognition on the software? Like, what's some of the ways that you bridge that gap?
I think it's the data. I mean, the data speaks for itself. The return on investment is there. And so I think most of our clients actually come to us knowing that. And then they embrace the vacation, easy breezy fun, because that's something that you want to use ongoing, right? You don't want to use something that's so complicated and stuffy. But yeah, I think, my selling job is easy in that, the data speaks for itself. Like when companies implement these recognition programs, they see results. They see, 31% lower turnover rate. They see, upwards of 60% increase in engagement. It's just, it doesn't lie. It's one of the most effective ways to really get a return on your investment in terms of your people.
I love it. Well, if people want to reach out to you or get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. They can email me directly at mahalohr.com. So it's E. McInnes, not Messines, at mahalohr.com. Or you could just visit the website and email support, and it'll get routed to me eventually.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing all about recognition and engagement and Mahalo.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Epic Company Culture Podcast with Josh Sweeney. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. For additional content and transcripts, visit epicculture.co. If you have questions or topics you would like us to address or expand on, tweet us at epicculture1 or email at podcast@epicculture.co.